Today on the show, we share our thoughts and first impressions of the first episode of the new Paramount Plus Halo series. Welcome to Lore Party's special coverage of the Halo television series. On this limited run of the Lore Party podcast, we'll be providing in-depth recaps of each episode of the new Paramount Plus series based on the timeless sci-fi shooter franchise. Welcome to the show. My name's Connor, and joining me as always, my partners in crime, Jaden.
Hello.
And Kevin.
What's going on?
We're ready to start this fight. Get it? Because we haven't finished it yet because the show just started. I'm hilarious.
Very clever.
Anyways.
I like that. I like that a lot. Coming out strong.
Absolutely.
Right off the bat. No, we are gathered here for a very special purpose. We're the three of us are finally doing a television review, which is new for us. Usually we talk.
Every other podcast producer on Lore Party is doing one, so we thought we might as well get to do one too.
Let's get in on it. Yeah, we're
Abu's doing 3, so we might as well get one.
Yeah, we got to catch up. Yeah, normally we talk game lore, but today we're talking game lore that has been loosely translated to a television show.
It's weird. We need to preface this by saying that the producers of this show said we didn't literally look at the lore of the games when we made this show. We looked at the characters. Mm-hmm. So as longtime Halo fans, we're going to have to be forgiving with some of the narrative plot points that we're going to discuss today because some of them are quite different.
Yeah.
And whether or not we like them has no bearing on the story because maybe they'll make sense for this version of the Halo universe. They might not make sense for the one that we know, but they might make sense for the one that we're going to know over the course of, 8 episodes long? 9 episodes? Something like that?
I think 8. I'm not sure.
Because it's not canon to the games, so we're going to have some fun.
And
fun.
I know I told Jaden this. I was like, hey, man, let's not be those generic, stereotypical Star Wars fans. We're not gonna.
I resemble that remark, sir.
Which we are, to be clear.
No, wait, both.
There's gonna be a lot of discrepancies, and there'll be nitpicky things, and probably some lore differences. But obviously, these episodes are gonna be super spoiler heavy as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you haven't watched them, please go watch them. And then come back, and then you can agree or disagree with us.
That's
also,
correct.
I'm calling it now. Maybe something that I hate now, I will like 5 or 6 episodes into this.
Very possible.
Because we're going to talk about one thing at the end that I was like, oh, what the hell is that? And I might actually like it.
I don't think you're going to like the CG, though. I don't
Nah,
think
so we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to all of it. Don't worry. But yes, that's a very good point. I think any fan, especially the fans of the Halo games over the years, it's always serves you well to go into an adaptation with an open mind, especially with this where, it's going to depart from what you know pretty heavily. So just kind of take it as its own thing. It's a new thing. It's establishing an entirely new universe. It's just kind of inspired by the ones we know and love. Yep. But without further ado, we're going to start with, as Kevin mentioned, a very spoiler-heavy recap of the episode itself. We're going to take a look at the main story beats and just break it all down from there. So yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, be warned. Go no further if you're avoiding spoilers. So, episode 1 of the Halo series, Contact, opens on a remote desert planet called Madrigal, where we kind of are introduced to the local population who, I guess it's fair to say, are not on good terms with the UNSC.
No, sir, they are insurgents, which is always something that that's the difference in the games right off the bat. It's like, the games, you didn't fight the insurgents. Right off the bat, like they were some background stuff that you learned about. It's like, hey, we are meeting these guys face to face, which I actually really liked.
I like that too.
That's
exactly.
I liked that, insurgents who are really just alluded to in the games, never really confronted face to face. We have them front and center at the very beginning of the show, which is cool. These are, insurgents who live on a planet that just so happens to be very rich in liquid deuterium, which is a key component of starship fuel at this point. And yeah, these people mention fighting the UNSC, which is basically the interstellar government of the time. That's if you're not familiar with Halo, that's all you need to know about. It's the human government, basically. And we're also introduced to a teenage girl named Quan Ha. And Quan's father happens to be a general, a very important member of the insurrection, this anti-UNSC
I believe he leads
organization.
all the forces of Madrigal.
Right, he's basically in charge of the planet and has kind of connections to the rest of the insurrection network. So yeah, these are interesting people we're being introduced to right now, and like it's important that they are not UNSC friendly. We'll kind of confront that later on.
Yep.
And so, being teenagers, of course, Quan and her friends kind of get into some shenanigans outside the settlement. They unfortunately stumble.
They're doing drugs, guys. They're doing drugs. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, they're
getting
doing
high.
Space weed,
space mushrooms, or whatever the fuck.
space
Yeah.
shrooms.
No, like what else are you gonna do on a desert planet, like with nowhere to go? You're alone and bored. Yeah, that's what's gonna happen. But unfortunately, while they're tripping balls, they come across a team of Sanghili, or elites as you might call them, Covenant warriors basically, who are excavating a nearby mountain. And the Sanghili immediately launch an all-out assault on the settlement on Madrigal and just start slaughtering civilians indiscriminately. When it's all over, Quan's the only survivor of this absolute massacre. And she only is able to survive thanks to the intervention of Silver Team. And this is a group of 4 Spartan 2 operatives who are just dropped out of the air and save the day and start, wrecking shit up and just killing aliens left and right. And of course, leading this team is none other than our man, the big man himself, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, the legend.
And as far as I know, he is the only character at this point in the show that we are familiar with. All of these Spartans that we see are new Spartans. There might be some
correct.
lore on them, but as far as I know, this is the first time we're seeing them in any sort of medium.
I believe Silver Team is created for the show. They're not Blue Team, Red Team. We know of entities.
John's had a
Spartans.
couple of teams, but this is a new team.
But Silver's
that he's
new.
leading.
Yeah.
And this team also, it's very one of those very precise teams where like you have a sniper, you have your brute force kind of like, it's very
Your dual pistol lady.
Yeah, it's very Spartan team.
They all have specializations.
Which by the way, in this sequence, you do see an elite who's carrying a sword and a plasma rifle, and I was like, see, developers, it can be done.
There you go.
It's not that hard.
See that? Look right there, Halo Infinite people.
Bring back dual wielding, please. But yeah, you have this amazing opening action sequence. I'll get to this later, but I was a big fan of this opening scene where Silver Team, these 4 killing machines, these 4 Spartans, just start engaging the Sanghili and wipe them out. But unfortunately, just in the melee, in the mayhem, every insurgent civilian on Madrigal except for Quan is killed. So Silver Team, just says, okay, job done, we're moving on. Like, Jaden, you and I have talked about that trademark Spartan efficiency and impartiality. Just, well, everything here is dead. Let's go somewhere else and moving on to our next objective.
And then Chief also just turns around and is like, oh wait, scratch that, one more. There's one human,
right.
And then he's just like, all right, cool, and then he just turns around and they just still leave anyway.
Yeah, he calls it in. He's like, no survivors. Turns around, sees Quan. Scratch that, one survivor.
Correction, one survivor.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, they eventually find the mountain that the elites were kind of digging into, and they recover this mysterious object buried inside the mountain. And when John touches this artifact, it reacts to him, like it lights up and activates. And a nearby elite warrior sees this, and he darts off. He manages to escape the Silver Team and fly back to base. But they wrap up there. Both Quan and the artifact are taken back by the Spartans to UNSC Fleet Command on planet Reach. We know Reach. Good old Reach.
Hey,
nice to see Reach again.
Can I just say I did think it was very funny when the elite left. It very much felt like I'll get you next time, Gadget. Like it just literally just so a Banshee just flying off into the sky, and I'm just
you haven't seen the last of me, Spartans.
Which I'm calling it now. That elite is Arbiter next season.
Oh,
I almost guarantee they're going to be like, I was the one who saw you, Chief, and now I am the Arbiter.
Could be cool.
Yeah.
Could be cool.
Cool, that's a word for it.
It could be a lot of things. but before they leave Madrigal, though, John starts to see things. He has visions that almost seem like memories, but he's not sure that they're his. All he knows is that he's seeing things, and they seem like the type of memories that a child might have. He's having almost childhood memories, and he's very confused and shaken up by.
He's reporting that to Catherine Halsey, which is, she has the face that has the most concern for anyone saying, "I saw a dog." John's like, "I saw a dog," and she was like,
what?
What?
You saw what? But I mean, obviously, I'll just say this now. I'm sure we're all thinking it. This is very likely a Forerunner artifact. It's pretty obvious that it's a Forerunner.
100%.
Yeah.
Totally, 100%.
So
they were digging in the rocks for it. There's no way it wasn't.
And I mean, like, it literally acted like the whole, like, don't press that button, DD, and then he did it, and then it was like, there you go.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep.
But after having these visions, Chief is shaken up. He's not sure what's happening. So he separates from Silver Team, which is against procedure. One of his teammates says that's not protocol. Like, we're supposed to be in elements of 2 at all times. And he's like, "Nah, don't worry about it. I'm good. I'll take the civilian and the artifact back. Don't worry about me."
He's like, "I have a friend. It's called Civilian."
And so we then cut away to Reach, where, as you mentioned, Dr. Catherine Halsey is monitoring John's post-mission status. And again, like you said, she's a little worried. She's not sure where this is going to go. And then we have her in this really cool scene where she butts heads with Admiral Margaret Parangoski, who is kind of the fleet brass who oversees Halsey's projects. And they have this tense
she's
exchange
a replacement for Lord Hood in the
kind of
canon.
Yeah,
He's not been erased, but if I remember right, he was always the contact with the Spartan group, and now I think
I'm pretty sure. Well, Parangoski in the books was the chief of Oni, and Oni did have oversight of the Spartan program. So I'm pretty sure that's a pretty clean translation from book to show, where it does make sense that Parangoski's kind of Halsey's superior in this scenario. But we also see that one project that Halsey's working on in particular, it kind of appears like she's cloning herself. Is what it looks like. And Parangoski sees this, and she immediately just, is very stern.
Why haven't you killed this thing yet?
What is that still doing here? And just kind of warns Halsey, like, "Hey, you better watch yourself," because Fleetcom is looking for any possible excuse to cut your funding.
Even though you've created these really crazy, cool, killing machines.
Super soldiers.
I don't like what you're doing. We don't like you.
Which
it fits. Everybody hates Halsey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is interesting because, in the books there's all this pushback against Halsey from the rest of the UNSC.
I wonder why.
Command. We'll get to that. But like, one of the things though is, like, a lot of people complain about the Spartan program being a waste of money. Like, it's just too costly to be cost effective. So that's probably what Parangoski's referring to. Like, hey,
God, it costs so much to win. We'd rather lose.
Right.
Pretty much.
Well, and in the comics, or not the comics, in the canon of the show, Halsey never made a clone. She made a clone of her own brain.
So we'll touch on that later.
The show, it's
in
a
the game,
full blown.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
in the
just
show, it's a full blown human, but in the games and in the books and stuff, it was just a brain. Why did she need to clone anything? We'll find out maybe next episode.
Perhaps. So after that, we briefly visit the Covenant Holy City of High Charity, this just gigantic floating city in space, where it's just where the command structure of the Covenant, where their leaders live. And one of those leaders, who we recognize from the games, which is kind of cool, the Prophet of Mercy, appears.
Yes.
And he speaks with a person, a character who basically just, from all appearances, is just a human woman. But the Prophet of Mercy refers to her as the Holy One. And
the Holy One.
Yeah, which is, I think, setting off alarm bells for all three of us. Like, why is a human on High Charity, and why is a Prophet of Mercy kind of deferring to her? What's going on here?
My first reaction was, this is insane. This is really stupid. But then Connor made a very, very excellent point. Which was, Connor?
I agreed with you. It was confusing at first, but after the episode was over, when I first watched it, I realized, like, maybe they're going to tie that into, like, a reclaimer sort of arc. Like, maybe this person convinced the hierarchs of the Covenant that she is a forerunner of some kind, and which would make her an object of worship for them.
Yeah.
So they'll probably do something with that one episode in, we have a lot of questions, obviously. So we'll see what they do with this, but yeah, in this first episode, we have a human on High Charity, and Mercy tells her that, oh, hey, by the way, that relic we were looking for on Madrigal, the humans took it, and apparently they are able to activate it in the same way that you can. And that's key for me. That's what kind of clicked things for me. I was like, oh, so they kind of, on some level, understand that humans are the reclaimers of Forerunner technology. Yeah. So that kind of refers to that.
Which, if we're going from the books and the canon, you know, the prophets, they all knew that humans were reclaimers.
But they kept it secret from the rest of the Covenant.
They kept it secret from the rest of them. So maybe we're going to see something. I think that might be too much for them to show in the show, personally.
I don't know. I feel like it would make for pretty good drama, you know?
It would, but maybe they'll work it in a way that's more subtle than it was, because in the books it was kind of like, here's this big fucking detail. I'm wondering if they're going to be like, you tricked us, random girl whose name,
I don't know. I mean, we don't know yet. They have a human this time. Like, they literally have a human with them.
Yeah, they have one.
And she's wearing one of those, like, weird, like, 2021 or 2020, something like that, like, fashion outfits on the runway is what she's wearing.
We call those the Padme Amidala's.
It literally looks like a shirt off the runway from this year. But yeah, I think that they're going to make that an emphasis because they've already shown a human working with them, and they've acknowledged that you have the same ability. Like, I think they're gonna make it a little bit more.
And the language when she speaks to the Prophet of Mercy, which you gotta remember, the prophets are the three. Like, there's three of them, and they're the boys. You know, like, those are the three big ones. Yeah, truth, mercy, and regret. And I think and the way that he was speaking to her, it was not in a I'm in charge of you. It's a you are in charge of me. What are your orders?
Yeah, it was deferential. Yeah.
Which is like, it's like, well, that changes a lot of things.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see their dynamic change as the series goes on. I expect it to change.
What I think might happen, and would be really cool if it did happen, is if the kind of B plot of the series is like, you know, each episode we kind of refer back, we cut back to High Charity, and we kind of see that drama unfold of, you know, the hierarchs knowing the secret about the reclaimers, and this human woman kind of maybe being outed as a human or revealing herself as Forerunner descendant or something like that. That could be cool. It could be. We'll just have to see. But yeah, so that scene wraps up, and we kind of come back to Reach, where we were introduced to another new character. Well, new to the show, not new to the gamers. A young UNSC officer working at the FleetCom staff headquarters on Reach named Miranda Keyes. And she is tasked with sort of being a trauma counselor almost for Quan Ha as she's being brought back to Reach.
I think they even call her a trauma counselor specialist.
Something like that. It's like we're gonna have Lieutenant Keyes.
It's very strange because you know, as we all know from the games, I would not describe her as a counselor of any kind unless you consider her a counselor of death.
Miranda in the games is not super touchy-feely.
She's really good at killing, even if it's her own troops.
And so she's being given the very unenviable job of reaching out to Quan and sort of convincing her to be a propaganda tool. Like, hey, we want you to speak to the rest of the UNSC and tell them what you saw in Madrigal, and we want you to praise the Spartans, basically, who saved your life. And Quan,
Quan naturally says, thank you, but how about I ruin your fucking lives instead? Yeah.
But no, like, she flatly refused. Well, she doesn't flatly refuse. She does make a demand in return. In return, she demands independence for Madrigal. Like, if you want me to do this for you, I want my home planet to be free of all UNSC influence and control. Because that's what my father wanted. That's what my father fought for his whole life. And we got to remember, in the first scene, Quan's father died trying to protect her from the elites.
Died horribly.
Pretty brutally, yes. And so she's shaken up.
Which was my question was, like, how, like, on the one hand, I get it. The UNSC doesn't want to give independence to any of their colonies. But at the same time, like, how many of them are left on that planet?
Yeah, her home settlement wasn't the only inhabited part of Madrigal.
Obviously it couldn't be, but I'm also like, man, there wasn't that many people there to begin with, and if that's where the general of the whole planet
I want you to give all 10 of the inhabitants left independence. So, like, she makes that demand.
The 25 of us will rebuild.
We'll rebuild. So she makes, in return for her cooperation, she wants independence from Madrigal. That's her demand, and she's very firm on it. She's kind of like, there's that fire in her, and she's taking a stand. And I think John notices that fire in Quan, and he's a little moved by it. And that's my speculation. But unbeknownst to Quan, she is, in response to this defiance, she's marked for termination by Miranda's father, a UNSC captain named Jacob Keyes.
Now, technically, he didn't mark her for death. He just went, orders from on high, honey. There's nothing I can do. We're at war, And it was like, that's kind of weird, but all right.
Yeah, he's not the one making the decision, but he does pass that decision along to Miranda. He kind of like breaks the news to her, like, oh, hey, you tried talking this civilian girl down off the ledge and it didn't work, so she's going to be terminated.
Plan B, we're going to fucking throw her out of an airlock.
Yeah, pretty much.
So Keyes kind of justifies this. He said, oh, well, we have to because Madrigal is, very strategically important. It's a source of valuable deuterium. We can't just give up control of Madrigal. And that's kind of how he rationalizes it to Miranda, but obviously Miranda's very unhappy. And throughout this scene, we also learn that Dr. Halsey is Miranda's mother. So, hell, surprise, there you go. Which I think... We discussed this before recording. We actually mentioned, like, that's something that was alluded to in the books, but never fully confirmed, I don't think.
Yeah, it was like, there's, honestly, like, when we say alluded to, we mean alluded to. Like lightly, there was a couple of, like, Halsey's journal that you could only unlock by doing a special mission in Halo Reach. Mm-hmm. Talked about how, like, she didn't like being pregnant, and, like, how Catherine does, or, like, that Miranda doesn't even talk to her anymore and shit like that. Like,
not to mention... she looks just like Cortana in the video game. Just
yeah,
that's a thing.
Takes after her mother and her cyber mother.
Her
cyber mom.
Yeah. Exactly, and it's like wow, they really just like they were like, yep, we're just gonna get that out there real quick.
Yeah,
like I don't know, that could have been maybe something they left off earlier. But also, we'll get to this in the critique part of it. But I was also kind of like, they acted like she was estranged to her mom a lot, and I'm kind of like, you guys work in the same building, though.
I mean, that's not mutually exclusive. You can work in the same building as your mother and have no relationship with her whatsoever. That can't happen.
I guess, but like the way that she was talking was like, I haven't spoken to mom in years, and it's like, really though? You didn't run into her in the parking lot on the way here?
What she actually says is she doesn't really say that they have no relationship. She really just says that their relationship is strained, and I think that's...
Yeah, well, because the Admiral's even like, is this going to be a problem? I've assigned Commander Keyes to do the interrogation. Which, by the way, that Admiral plays fast and loose with the interrogations, because she was like, we're going to have her debrief when she gets to Halo. One phone call goes bad. Nah, never mind.
Yeah, never mind.
Fucking gas her. Get her out of here.
We tried. Yeah, so that's something we're going to have probably a heavy job to tease out as we go through the series, as the episodes come out, like... The Halsey-Miranda relationship from the canon we already have established versus how it's explored here in the show is going to be interesting. So it's basically made clear that, like, Miranda's father, Captain Keyes, Miranda herself, and Dr. Halsey are not exactly a healthy family unit. That's fair to say. But yeah, so we cut back to the spaceship that John and Quan are flying back to Reach on. And John is still like he's getting to know Quan a little bit. Like they're just having small talk, and I actually really enjoyed the scene where they're just sort of like passing time.
What do you eat?
Yeah, she's eating something, and obviously Chief is not eating anything. He still has his helmet on, and so Quan's like, "What, are you not hungry?" And he's like, "I didn't see anything I liked."
She's like, "What do you like?
What do you like to eat?" And he goes, "Nuts, bolts, wire," stuff like that, and. Yeah, it was great. It was like a nice little...
Like, get it? Because everyone thinks he's a robot.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, he's making fun of himself a little bit. So, like, but then he receives the kill order on Quan. Like, his helmet flashes and says, oh, hey, that civilian you're transporting, she needs to die.
Yeah, good news and bad news.
And, like, at this point, you got to remember, he's still kind of shaken up by the visions he saw from the relic and, his conversation with Quan. He just basically makes the snap decision to disobey orders and keep Quan safe. And in response to this, the UNSC brass try to kill them both by venting the oxygen in the ship they're on.
Yep. Well, they don't try to kill him. They try to knock him out. They're very specific about that. Like,
true. Yes.
They're like,
that's true.
They're like, kill her, but knock him out.
Yeah. And like his armor would keep him alive, but she would die.
Now, they said drop his armor below 40%.
Now, also keep in mind, this is he's in charge of an actual team, so like he's in the hierarchy, like pretty high up for Spartans, and so him disrespecting, if you will, or disobeying an order, all that stuff, like they're not gonna just try to kill him right now, right off the bat. They're gonna say, what the hell's going on? We're gonna knock him out and figure it out.
Well, Captain Keyes even says, like, in the episode, he's like, this is our most important military asset, and you guys are treating it like a play toy.
Yeah. But there's that ongoing conversation while Chief is like kind of going AWOL where Parangoski, Keyes, and Halsey are all kind of all having this roundabout conversation, like, how is it possible that, this programmable, raised from childhood super soldier is not doing what he's being told to do? Like, this has never happened before. Like, they make that clear. Like, this is unprecedented. So
because then it's like kind of what happens is he ends up fixing the ship and makes it so there's no more vent. And then he continues to, like, try to, her alive. And it just continuously, like, spirals from there, domino effect.
Right. Well, yeah, while he's fixing the ship so that Quan doesn't die, Quan tries to kill him. She thinks that, she can't trust this super soldier who took her from her destroyed home. Like, he represents the UNSC, and so that means to her he can't be trusted.
He is the symbol of everything that she has been taught to fear.
Exactly, yes.
The Spartans were boogeymen who come for you in the middle of the night.
Exactly. Yeah, like, we should mention that at the beginning of the show, her insurgent friends were all kind of swapping stories about, fighting UNSC Marines, and then someone brings up the Spartans, and then the table kind of goes quiet, and all of them are like, oh man, Spartans are no joke. You run when you see them. Like, they're unstoppable. They're not human, yada yada. So yeah, I think
at the same time, when they show up on Madrigal, the elites are like, oh god, it's the demon.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
He has that nickname already, so that's going.
That's good.
Yeah, that was cool. So yeah, it's very well put, Jaden, that he is what she was brought up to distrust and fear, and so she shoots at him. And
she doesn't shoot him. She's like, "I'm gonna shoot you." She
threatens him.
He threatens to shoot.
Oh yeah, I thought she actually did.
Which then he has that great line where he's just like, this won't even dent that.
Yeah, I'm wearing a Mark 6 Mjolnir armor. You're not even going to dent it. And so he has that really cool moment where he says, "If you want to kill me, you're going to have to aim here." And he takes off his helmet.
That is going to be the
spoiler alert. There's another helmet.
Yeah.
I said that out loud while watching it. He's taking the helmet off, and then there's another helmet.
That would have been hilarious.
That would have been the greatest thing in the world, because that would have been such a callback to I think it was the Legendary Edition of Combat Evolved.
Yeah, you could do camera mode, and then you can like spread back, and then you can see him take his helmet off, and it's just the same thing.
That would have been a hell of an Easter egg for sure. But no, when he removes his helmet and he's kind of like having this moment of appealing to their common humanity, it's an actually really heartwarming, kind of scene where he removes his helmet and you just see he's just a guy. He's just a human man. He looks a little beaten up, a little scarred, a little weathered, but he's still just a guy. And I think seeing him face to face, Quan realizes maybe he really is on my side, and they sort of decide to work together. But while all this is happening, the UNSC is getting ready to kill her and bring him in alive as however they have to.
We'll give his brain a good cleaning, and we'll put him back in his suit.
Well, what happens is he turns the camera off for the entire ship, like all the cameras. He turns them all off, and then we end up seeing they're kind of like freaking out, and they're like, "What do we do?" He just turned the cameras off, and so we go into like a weird, like almost like a sonar style. Kind of makes them look like a video game to like look at the ship and see what they're doing. And right before that scene too, we see Halsey kind of going through like what happened to him when he touched the machine, and it basically lit up like his entire neural system like a Christmas tree. It was like, and it kind of like, we don't know what it did, but it was pretty, and that's basically, we see him do this, and Halsey's like running around the entire time as all this stuff is happening. She's just like going back and forth between office and the command center and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And she also goes and visits Silver Team, because Silver Team has been ordered to neutralize John, and she kind of privately, secretly countermands those orders and asks Silver Team, bring him back alive, however you have to. And so that's kind of like overriding their existing orders and giving them new ones.
She said if anybody tries to attack the Master Chief, they are an enemy. And
right.
one of the cool little fun tidbits was in the beginning when they're talking about the Spartans at that like gambling table, when those rebel scum are talking about Spartans, they say that you may have fought a bunch of Marines, but each Spartan is worth at least 100 Space Marines. And then when we cut to right when she's talking to all these Spartans, you have hundreds of Space Marines just running out, trying to get ready to stop Chief.
Yeah, they're setting up like machine gun nests and just getting ready to just blow their ship out of the air. And that's pretty much what they do. The ship gets shot down by an EMP blast, basically just kind of crashes intact. John and Quan are kind of out of options. They're pinned down. They have Marines beating down their door, Silver Team's right outside, ready to kill their own men if they have to bring John back alive. And so it's kind of like all hope seems lost. They're, out of options. But at the last second, John touches the Madrigal artifact again, and its energy sort of reactivates the damaged spaceship, and they are able to fly away. Maybe not to safety, but at least out of the immediate situation. So,
and it EMPs like the whole city.
Yeah, they kind of shut down all of FleetCom on their way out to make sure they can get away safely. So that's where the episode ends. We're kind of given this open-ended, like, where are they going to go next? What's going to happen? We will see in the next episode. All right, we're going to keep this conversation going, but first, a quick break. Okay, so we've broken down episode 1 of the Halo series, titled Contact. We've kind of explored the main story beats. So we've had some observations on interesting translations of the established lore and just interesting things we've noticed about the episode. But I think here we're going to get into some general takeaways, maybe critiques, maybe things we liked, things we didn't like, and wrap it up there. So I'll just say right off the bat, I think I mentioned this earlier, but my first impression was the opening battle scene on Madrigal was strong. I really enjoyed it. I was actually watching it with my fiance. I was on the couch, and she probably noticed me like clapping and I was just kind of doing the yeah, fuck yeah, like kind of poses, and like I was like pumping my fist like that was awesome, and she was like laughing. So yeah, there were things that I was like really engaged with, and I just enjoyed the exposition of, we mentioned the insurgents earlier, how we're finally seeing the fringes of UNSC society. We're seeing like the people who struggle against the authority and how they still suffer at the hands of the Covenant. And so like the first battle scene, I think, just did such a great job of establishing how terrifying the Covenant are to average humans. Like if you're just living on some, bumfuck nowhere, outpost on a desert planet no one visits, and the Sangheili show up and start blasting you and your friends and your family, just the terror that imparts in you. And then the subsequent amazement at seeing Spartans arrive and fight back against the aliens. Like, I think the spectacle was really on point there.
I thought it wasn't the choreograph wasn't weak. I think the weak part was, and I was telling you guys this earlier, like when Halo ODST and like Halo 3, even Halo 2 came out, they had these commercials that were really, really good. It had a lot of practical effects, and the CG was fine. Obviously, like that's where the majority of the budget went. Some parts and sequences kind of looked a little cheesy to me, like fan filmish. I do remember my favorite part of the whole thing was when I don't know who the Spartan is, but he picks up literally just like a steel rod and just starts like Donatelloing the whole thing with a couple of elites, and then he stabs one and just picks him up with it. And I was like, that's fucking badass. I thought the opening sequence was really cool. Like it definitely immersed me a little bit more than I thought it would. I really liked that they were even talking about how the Spartans, like the origins of the Spartans in terms of why they were made, like to quell human rebellion in colonies. And I thought that was really cool because in the games you don't hear it enough, because like we are a Spartan and we're the hero, and that's the whole point. And so I think it was really cool that they at least give us the touch of like how Spartans were not really made to fight the Covenant. They're just like a convenient existence to fight the Covenant. And
We were lucky
Yeah.
they existed at the time.
And I think that was really cool. Like that got me excited in the first scene because it was literally the first scene was just talking about Spartans and how they're just here to kill humans. And I thought also that the weapons of the Covenant looked like it did work. Like their weapons obviously looked more advanced. The damage was more advanced. Literally, people were getting limbs blown off, and then they were just getting evaporated.
Well, and also, the majority of the guns we saw were insurgent guns, so I think they imply that those guns aren't as good as UNSC top-of-the-line military equipment.
Some of the things that took me out, too, were, like, I saw, like, a truck from, like, 1998 or something like that, or, like, 2000-something. Like, I saw a truck, and I was just like, that doesn't look like it would fit 500 years from now, but all right.
Someone's not a fan of Firefly, then.
No, I'm fine with it. It was just, like, it took me out for a second, because I was like, wait, isn't this supposed to be the far future? But overall, I mean, I liked that they touched on that kind of stuff, and the space drugs were kind of funny to me. I thought that was hilarious.
I will say that we have to mention this, and there's been a lot of hullabaloo about an article that came out like 2 days before the show premiered, where one of the, I want to say, producers or showrunners said, we didn't study the games when we made this show, we studied the characters. And that got a lot of flack. Understandably so, at least I think. From people who love the series. I'm going to honestly say the first half of that show, I would have called that person a liar. Because I was like, man, the showrunners might not have watched it, but the VFX producers definitely did. Like, they definitely played those games. Because, I mean, at one point, I'm literally watching it, and one of the elites just goes, wart, wart, wart. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. Like, holy crap. Like, all the guns sounded the same.
All the sound effects. The shields, the
shields going down and then
duck
recharging.
So his shields could reload, which, I will say this. I wish they had added, like, a shimmer onto him to, like, show his shields up. I don't know. In the world where Dune exists and they were able to adequately show the shields in Dune, loading, I wish they would have done a little bit more. Because, like,
movie budgets and TV budgets are potatoes and apples.
See, you can't say that, though, because they spent $12 million an episode on this Halo series.
Yeah. I also one other thing that I noticed, like a subtle thing, was if you looked at the symbol for the team, it was one of it's very resemblance of kind of one of the like the symbols you can use for Halo. Like I usually do a wolf with like the saw blade. That's mine. And they had like a wolf and like they had the whole thing, man. Like it was so good. Like I think that shit, like the little subtle details like that looked really fucking cool, man.
Again, the VFX players are nerds and they've definitely played the games, but I don't know about the showrunners. Because like the second half, when they started getting into the character and the relationshipy stuff, I was like, man, I don't know about this. Like Captain Keyes is a desk clerk now, and I'm like, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, okay, so I did want to touch on that, but I want to move through the rest of my points first.
Yes, please.
I hold on to that thought. I have some thoughts on Keyes too, but no, like we mentioned the sound effects. I wanted to say the shields going down and recharging, exact same sound effects. Chef's kiss.
They did the POV shot from his helmet that looked just like the game. Like that looked good.
How they were like moving weapons from one another, like
Oh yeah, that was really, honestly, I laughed when they did that. I went, good, like because they didn't have a Marine there for him to steal a gun from, so he was just like, he had to willingly be like, here you go, Chief.
I'll just say in general, I think we mentioned VFX, but like just props, the vehicles, the set design, the sound design, they're top notch to me. I feel like I'm seeing weapons that I'm used to shooting in the games, like the assault rifles, the DMR that one of Silver Team has. The pistols were perfect recreations. The warthogs later in the episode, they literally have the same gas cans in the back of the warthogs.
Yeah.
So there's so many details that I'm getting the flavor of Halo. I'm feeling like, okay, this is fucking Halo. I'm getting all the flavors, all the visual and audio flavors. But moving on to something else I liked. Well, I guess I'm mixed on this, but I'm just gonna say Pablo Schreiber, the actor, as John 117. He's solid to me. I liked him a lot. I just think he's gonna need to grow on me, and he's really gonna have to grow on a lot of fans, because I think we've touched on this before we started recording, but I think it's very, very hard to follow in Steve Downs' footsteps.
Here's the thing: is like it's like whoever is gonna follow up and play Wolverine. Like
exactly,
he's not Hugh Jackman, but he's gonna be Danny DeVito. It's like we're still gonna love him.
Yeah.
They're not gonna do Danny DeVito, but like whoever they're gonna come up with, like you're just gonna have to get some. It's gonna take some getting used to. It's new Coke. It's it's the new flavor. but it's still the same person. I was like, I'm fine with it. Like maybe they could have done like, the whole Sam Witwer is the voice of Darth Maul now, but Ray Park still does the voice or like the motions for him. But I mean, Connor pointed out, I was like, why the hell would they do that when you can just have a new actor for cheaper?
Just
and I was like, that's a great point. It is cheaper. You're right. But also, they spent $12 million an episode.
Dude, it adds up. Like, you gotta pay all the actors. No, I get you. Like,
you're right.
Master
Voice
Chief...
actors get paid too much, right, Kevin?
No, we get paid jack shit. Why do you think everybody's trying to go union? With him, okay, so first off, I usually call him Master John 117 Halo Chief. But now I'm just going to have to call him, Master Porn Stash Chief. Because I am so, like, it got, like, I'll tell you, I did not go into this knowing anybody who was going to be in the cast except for like one person. And I didn't expect it to be him. So when he took his helmet off, I had a lot of emotions. The first one, I was terrified of him taking his helmet off because I knew it was coming, but I was just really like, I don't know, because I'm kind of, I was on the fence of like,
I was hoping they were going to pull a Pedro Pascal from Mandalorian. It's like, hey, we'll do this reveal like episode 9 or whatever, but then they just did it right away.
I know.
Also, counterpoint to you, Connor. I'm sorry, I'm derailing you a little bit, but Jen Brown is apparently coming back to voice Cortana.
Jen Brown? I thought it was Jen Taylor.
Or Jen Taylor. Whoever the original voice of Cortana is coming back to voice Cortana for the show.
That's cool.
But they didn't do the voice for Master Chief. Couldn't come back. It was just like God,
again,
dang it.
because you can't have Steve Downs in the armor. It just wouldn't work. He's too old.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, but you can't. Like, he just wouldn't look right.
But like having the helmet come off. So like I remember we've been talking about this for a couple weeks now, but at first I was like, I don't know, the helmet is, we did it in Mandalorian and it worked and I didn't really have a problem. I could see the emotion, just through the voice, like I could understand it. However, when he did take the helmet off, all right, I was sold. Yeah. I was into it.
Yeah.
Like I think the way he looked, like you could just see the pain in his eyes and like obviously, we know he's going to be trying to kind of regain his humanity, right? Like, that's kind of obvious as to what's going to be happening here. And I always think of that like GIF clip from the one trailer where they're talking about how Spartans have had aggressive problems and some of them, suffer from depression and all sorts of like total mind fuck-ups from what they've been through. And I think of that Spartan that's just sitting there reloading a weapon, looking depressed at the ground. And that triggered me when when I saw him, that's exactly what I thought of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, all right, cool. I'm into it. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's just try it. Let's see what happens. And he's a good actor, so I'm not going to complain, honestly.
Right. No, that's exactly what I thought the entire time the concept of Master Chief taking off his helmet on screen was in the conversation. I thought, that's what I want. I want to explore who John 117 is as a human being. And I think you have to rip that Band-Aid off early. Like, why wait five or so episodes to like explore him as a person when you could just kind of get that, get into it from the beginning? And so I liked the helmet scene. I thought it was necessary and I thought it was impactful. I just hope that is sort of the introduction to a longer conversation on what's going on inside of his head. What does he do with these revelations about his memories and where he came from, his life before he was a Spartan? I hope that there's like a really layered exploration of that, and that the helmet reveal is just the beginning of exploring him as a person and not just as a soldier killing machine.
See, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there, Connor, just because I know of instances where having the helmet on for the show or movie is just fine and you're able to explore these themes without doing it. I mean, Judge Dredd, Carl Urban doesn't take off the helmet once. Sure.
But we also don't really get into his head the entire time. We just see him kill guys, which is fine. Like, that's what that movie's about.
Yes, but at the same time, we haven't taken... Chief still hasn't taken his helmet off in any of the games, and we're able to follow in his thinking.
Actually,
he takes it off for like 2 seconds at the end of Halo 4. That doesn't count. You don't see his face.
Oh
so
yeah,
you see, like,
you see his eyes. You see the
You don't see his eyes. You see the sunken parts of his face. You do not.
No. You gotta beat it on Legendary. I think it's like Halo 5. You have to beat it on Legendary, and then they like you take the helmet off and then you see his actual.
We're getting in the weeds. We're getting in the weeds.
In the weeds.
All right. See, this is what we said we didn't want to do.
We're way
but
out.
anyway,
Semantics.
But okay,
I still believe that you were able to tell a good story without taking the helmet off of a character. I think that it's just a Hollywood thing where they have to, the actor gets paid and he wants to be able to show his face.
That's fair.
So it's like that's why Spider-Man pulls his mask off. That's why, Captain America only fights with his helmet sometimes on. It's because the actor wants to make sure that his face is out there. They don't want to be,
I take your point.
The actor who plays Friday the 13th. It's like I feel like it's a thing that they didn't have to do, but I feel like someone said they had to do it to tell a good story, and I disagree with it. But at the same time, you're right. It could be something that in the future, like 5 episodes down the line, when he doesn't wear his helmet at all anymore, and I'll be like, cool, this version of Master Chief, it makes sense for me to not have his helmet on anymore.
Well, I'm not saying he needs to keep it off or anything like that. And I take your point, it didn't need to happen. I'm not saying it needed to happen. I'm just saying it was a good use of that moment. It served the story in that moment because Quan thinks this is just a faceless killing machine. And he shows her that he's not just a faceless killing machine. He's a human being. So if it serves the story in the moment, I think it's a good use of that story moment. It could have happened later. It could have been maybe more impactful later, but it was impactful when it needed to be impactful, and it served the story of this particular episode. And
I think also one of the reasons why we feel so strongly about this either way is just we've seen so many Spartan faces before. We just haven't seen his. And so for this to happen, it's kind of a big moment. Yeah. And if you think about, like Connor said, it serves the story, it serves the purpose. Yeah. If you really sit and think about it, even with game lore, it's kind of makes sense for the situation because, again, they touch upon it in the beginning. Spartans, they're just killing machines. They were created to kill us. So she's a person that they were created to destroy. And so I think that to show that it's hey, we're all human, or hey, it's a matter of perspective, blah, 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 war, you can go all Attack on Titan if you want. I don't care. It's just to show, hey, I'm not anything different necessarily than you. I am a human. And I think that it definitely, like I said, I was really on the fence, but I really think it served its purpose in the moment.
I also didn't like his beard.
His beard is fine.
Well, hey, he is in the military. He probably shouldn't be having a beard, but he does have a helmet on, so
no one's going to say shit to him about it, though. Master Chief, you need to shave that. And he goes, I need to shave what? And they'll say, never mind, sorry.
He's a Master Chief petty officer, man. He's so low on that totem pole, a fucking colonel's going to walk up to him and be like, that's not regulation.
Anyway, I do need to point out, you reminded me, Kevin, I forgot to mention this earlier. We skipped over something pretty important. We find out that Master Chief is responsible for the death of Quan's mother years prior.
Yes.
Apparently, he had been on a mission to take out some insurgent leaders, and one of the people killed in that raid was Quan's mother. So it's kind of like she has every reason to hate this man, to not trust him at all. And
she even says, he tells her there were orders, the orders changed, and the orders were changed to basically an insurgent bomb threat. And she goes, what, on a group of insurgents? That makes no sense. And he's he even finishes the sentence for her, and he's yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And she's and you don't question it? And he's looks at her, and he's just why would I? Right. It's an order. And she's just come on, dude. And then he's already touched the artifact, and so he's kind of already starting to kind of get these visions and stuff, and he's already changing. It did feel a little Mass Effect-y as soon as he touches the artifact. He gets some visions and stuff. I did think that was kind of cool, personally.
I felt like we brushed over that fact that her mom was killed by Chief, though, a little bit. It was just kind of oh, by the way, you murdered my mom. It was wait, go back, hold on, rewind. And he was just yes, I did. I was wait, why is this not a bigger reveal here?
But see, here's the thing, his reaction to these kinds of things, even though he's already starting to reawaken whatever and all this stuff, I do think that it shows how programmable these Spartans are, because they just, you know, he didn't really have humanity towards it. He was like, you know, oh, okay.
Yeah.
The way their cadence when they speak, the way they interact, it definitely feels robotic, and I think it shows how when he took his helmet off, it was like, oh, like I can finally breathe, you know what I mean? Like I can finally breathe past the mask, and the mask was like, you know, his cell, if you will. Like he's being controlled by the UNSC, and like obviously we have Halsey being a piece of shit and everybody hates her already. Like great, this is awesome. But it really, you know, I think all those things from the books and the shows, like all that, I love it, like in the games and stuff. But this, I really think like it was finally him actually awakening after he took that helmet
deciding
off.
To start thinking for himself and disobey orders he knows are not justifiable. And there are many influences that lead him to that point. And that's kind of like, that was the climax of the episode, is just, you know, all these things coming together to push him in the direction of, this isn't right, I can think for myself. And I think that was a cool moment. It's a cool payoff. There are a couple of loose ends to tie up here in the episode. A couple of little threads I wanted to bring up as well. Jaden, you and I talked about Captain Keyes as a character. And I will just say, first of all, kind of my leading thought here is that after this first episode, you know, we were first episode, a pilot episode, like Contact here. A pilot episode, you know, big job of pilots is to introduce characters and kind of tell you what they're all about, you know, show you what their deal is. And I'm just saying, for now, after one episode in, I do hope these supporting characters kind of step more fully into themselves as the series progresses. And my big example of that is Captain Keyes. Jaden, I'll let you tee off in a second here, but I'm just going to say really quick that he's kind of being relegated to this middle manager type who just sort of goes along with the bureaucracy. And I feel like so far, at least with this first episode, that's kind of a waste of his character. Like, because in the games, Captain Keyes is this guts and glory, blood and thunder leading man, like, you know, the kind of officer, the kind of starship captain you'd follow into the gates of hell.
Leads from the front.
Yes, he's a very, you know, headstrong but wise. You know, he's a leader. He's a very decisive guy. And in the show, he's just some dude who says, "Oh well, my hands are tied. What are you gonna do?" So maybe that's setting him up for growth later. I hope. But that's my first impression, at least.
I mean, the best example of Captain Keyes, even from the games, like they expand upon in the books, but like Captain Keyes is required by law to carry a pistol with him while he is on service on a ship, but he never keeps the pistol loaded because he knows it's useless. He's like, I don't need to keep this loaded. It makes no sense for me to have a gun like this when I'm in command of this giant, massive starship.
Covered in nukes and Mac
covered
guns
in nukes and archer missiles. Yeah, exactly. Like he's practical. Right. Yeah, and which is where he has this mind that thinks. Whereas at the same time, like this version of Captain Keyes is like, well, my hands are tied, honey. You know, she has to die. It's like
teenager civilian has to die.
Telling his daughter, like, yeah, you know, if roles were reversed, I'd be totally fine with them murdering you. It's like, wait, no, what do you mean?
I try to. When I was watching it and he was kind of being a pushover, I kind of kept thinking to myself, like, even though he's older, like he's obviously an older guy, I kind of feel like, how long has he had this rank? Like, how long has he been in charge of what he's been in charge of? How long has he been, you know, aware of what's going on? So, like, I'm kind of just looking at it that way, but that obviously is my own perspective and my own take on it. But I mean, his daughter is not, she doesn't look like she's, you know, maybe older than like 30, not even. Like, she still looks
easily in her 20s, which would match
with super young
Commander Keyes from the games.
Right.
Like, Commander Keyes is not that much older.
But like that's the thing, like she looks super young, and so like I don't know, I feel like he can't be that far in his career.
No, he
will.
is. Like, he's still a captain.
He's a captain, which is, as a Navy rank, is
I mean, but like, again, did he just
no. To answer your question, Kevin, in the lore, even as a commander, which in the Navy is a lower rank than captain, as a commander of a destroyer before he was captain of the cruiser Pillar of Autumn, he was a very, you know, go-getter, lead from the front kind of guy. Also a tactical genius.
The Keyes maneuver.
But so, like, it's kind of weird that, like, as a captain, he's not leading a ship. He's just at headquarters, and he's just kind of a paper pusher.
Yeah.
So
he feels like he feels like a desk clerk, and I'm like,
yeah.
Now, episode 2 could roll around and they're like, all right, go get in your ship, the Pillar of Autumn,
maybe,
and hunt down Master Chief. And that, which by
sorry.
the way,
I don't know.
I just need to get this out there and say this: where the fuck was Sergeant Johnson?
I know. Where is he? Where
the hell is Sergeant Johnson? Like, if you want to introduce a character
I don't think he's gonna be in this.
that like everyone will love and relate, where the fuck is
they
he?
They might be holding out on that one. They're picking their moment for that one. I hope so.
Maybe because I cared more about him than all of, like, I'm gonna be honest. I've been playing Halo since Halo 1, and I'm still like ever since 3, I'm like, there's not been a side character that I've loved more than Sergeant Johnson.
Yeah, he's timeless.
Throw him in there. Yeah. Like, that's the character you need to like give some humanity to Master Chief.
I agree. Kevin, you had a question still?
Well, I don't know. I kind of think that all of this stuff that we've already like seen, some of Halsey's very secretive, right? Like, all of her shit's already very secretive still, and I just kind of feel like if he's on Reach, there's a reason he's on Reach, and obviously my brain's pulling in outside lore, but like, if he's on Reach, there's a reason he's on Reach. And maybe, you're in the military, especially the UNSC, like, that's all super bureaucratic crap. Like, you don't have as much power as you may think you have in the military when you keep going up in rank. And so, like, I feel like maybe when he says my hands are tied kind of situation, I genuinely think it's like military order, like, you're new to this situation and you should just...
Yeah, no, I will say it makes sense in the context of the show, and we've kind of touched on that overarching point before. Like, when you're translating characters from a game to a television show, there are going to be some bumps in the road. It's not going to be a one-to-one, kind of carbon copy. But I think Jade and I are on the same point here. Is that, like, maybe it makes sense in the show. Maybe it'll like kind of develop into something better later.
Episode 2, that admiral could be like, go kill him, go hunt him down,
right?
And murder him.
It might make more sense down the road, but just in this first episode, it's jarring to see Captain Keyes in that situation, knowing what we know about him.
I mean, that's my big thing.
Is
I was like, I don't know. I was like, the UNSC is this giant military operation. And I'm like, Halsey being on Reach, that's fine. Commander Keyes is also on Reach, working with her in the same building. Sure. Oh, and her dad also works. I was like, what nepotism is this?
I know, it's weird. Yeah, I think she's.
Well, remember,
spread out your keys, man. Come on.
But also, guys, remember this.
That's not sword based. That's the key ring, is what that is.
But like, remember when, in the beginning, when the Covenant attack, the rebels, they're like, I thought this was just propaganda. I didn't think this was real. It is real. They're real. The alien, like, this is the beginning of, like, basically the Covenant contact, where this is the start of it. Like, that's why I think it's so. This has to, obviously, again, this is taking place in a different timeline, different world, if you will, but it's also taking place way far back before anything happened on Reach.
Right. So, yeah, like, at the end of the day, we'll see what they end up doing with these characters that we know of already, and it's just, we just have to understand it's going to be different. It's not going to be the games. We've kind of belabored that point by now, but that's what we have to keep reminding ourselves. Yeah. But one kind of final loose thread I wanted to touch on are just a couple of other supporting characters. First of all, I just want to say Parangoski, Admiral Parangoski. My impression of her is that she's just as ruthless and pragmatic.
She's an asshole, and I love it.
Cold and incisive as I expected from her to be from the books. In the books, like, that's exactly what you get. So I think that's a really nice translation. They handled that pretty well. That's a good use of that character. I liked her tense sort of verbal sparring with Halsey. They're like, a battle of wills.
I was expecting, like, when I read the name, I was expecting like an angry Russian lady, but this interpretation of it is as good, if not better.
Sure, yeah. Natasha McElhone. I'm probably butchering that, McElhone. As Halsey, I like her screen presence. I am just hoping to see more of that trademark Halsey arrogance come out. Like, in the games and the books, Dr. Halsey is, like, she knows she's the smartest person in the room at all times and makes you aware of it too. And I think the Admiral
kind of bullies Halsey a little too much for my liking. I'm like, shouldn't Halsey be, like, firing back at her?
what does Halsey do? Halsey just is like takes it in public and like shows like, yo, okay, and then goes behind her back and then starts doing her own thing.
She's always working an angle. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, like, Captain Keyes, we're talking about side characters, like his presence, like it's not enough for me to say like, oh yeah, it's perfect, but like, I mean, it's not bad. The character's
it's not bad.
So far so good.
It's just weird,
Miranda Keyes is so far so good. I'm just like, I don't know. I guess I'm waiting for bullets to start flying around them before I see if they're closer to the characters than what I'm used to seeing.
We need to see them tested. Really
exactly
put to the trial.
like they're just those two characters are just so no nonsense in the games. I'm just expecting them to be more like that in the show, and it just like all we've seen in them is very emotional. Which, to be fair, we didn't get that because by the time we met Miranda, Captain Keyes was already fucking dead.
Right.
So
just throw them in a tutorial and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I guess lastly is just Cortana. That's kind of the big elephant in the room right now, kind of.
Yep.
You know, when talking about Cortana from the games, just for context, for anyone not aware, Cortana in the games and in the established lore is an AI, an artificial intelligence built on basically a crystalline neural interface, basically. An artificial brain modeled after Dr. Halsey's brain. So Cortana basically originated as a digital AI clone of Dr. Halsey, more or less. But it looks like in the show, they're going in a slightly different direction where it's almost like Halsey's literally just cloning herself physically in a new body, and that might take shape as Cortana later on in the series. I'm curious how that's going to pan out, what's going to be different about it, because Cortana as a breathing physical person, that's hard to imagine because we're so used to her being like a digital entity that can be uploaded, downloaded, transferred, moved around and stuff. So that's going to be weird. I don't know what they'll do with that.
She's going to be Master Chief's guy in the chair, and it's going to be
like his
not
Oracle,
in his head.
almost.
It's going to be in a literal chair
maybe.
on a computer somewhere else.
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much episode 1 of Halo, episode 1 Contact in a nutshell. We've covered a lot of ground. I will just say to wrap up that I really enjoyed it. Overall, I wasn't blown away. I wasn't like completely, left like that was perfect, 10 out of 10, no notes. But like I did enjoy it, and I'm ready for more. I'm curious and optimistic for more, cautiously optimistic for more. I will just say, well, what do you guys think for final thoughts? Anything we've missed or anything? Any last bits you want to touch on,
Kevin?
I had fun, and I think that's the whole point. Is like I enjoyed it. I had fun. It was cool to see like live action versions of weapons and like armor and just like all the aesthetic. It was really cool to see. I think budgetary wise, with the budget it had, I still think like some of the CG was kind of in the beginning. Like obviously most of the CG, I think like the budget, if you will, went towards the ending stuff. Obviously when you have a darker scene, you don't have to worry too much about it. It's gonna look good usually when it's darker anyway. So like having it on a desert planet with all these CG aliens running around, explosions, all sorts of stuff, like obviously it looked a little weird at times. I think the physics and like how Spartans landed when they jumped and that kind of stuff looked a little off to me. Even when Chief picks up the machine gun and starts shooting, he like starts shooting at the ground, which was really weird, but like it very obviously was like little explosions on the ground. Like there were effects wise, it threw me a little out because I kind of was just like, the Halo 2 anniversary cutscenes looked better than this, and like there were just some of it that was honestly that's my biggest critique is quality of CG. But overall, I mean, I think the human being a part of the Covenant was the fuck's up with that. I obviously will find out. I thought that was weird. I thought it was interesting that she was reading Alice in Wonderland. I had fun with that. I thought that was a really cool little thing. I don't know. I mean, I liked it. Like, I thought it was fun. Like that. It was cool. It was different. And obviously I am not used to it because we've been dealing with these characters and all sorts of stuff in this universe for years. So to have a new perspective and a new kind of take on it, it's going to be jarring for us. But I can guarantee you if like, some kid who's never seen Halo or something like that watched this show if they were allowed to due to the gore. If they were allowed to, they would be like, well, that's really cool. Like, they would have fun. And I think that's really what it is. I mean, I didn't feel disrespected in any way in terms of, like, how characters were handled. And I was just kind of like, cool, this is cool. I'm down for it. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Jaden, what about you?
I don't want to sound negative. I mean, I know that's what I normally do, is that I sound negative. Overall, I liked a lot of it. I have questions about a couple of things, and the fact that it's a non-canon story means it's essentially harmless. So, you know, they could have Master Chief shooting babies, and I'd be like, well, it's not canon, so who cares?
Wow.
But I think, honestly, like, the story they have is intriguing enough for me to keep watching, and the fact that we're doing a podcast play-by-play of it is not going to hurt that either. Yeah. So, I think, honestly, it's got a decent start. I think that the people who hate it are hating it way too much. Do I think there are problems with it? Yeah. But that being said, it is episode 1. And if I'm still the same way by the end, I would be surprised, because obviously people are getting paid way more than I am to come up with these stories, you know, and make them good. So hopefully, you know, my opinion of it will change later. I mean, heck, they did like 260 drafts of this first episode, so you know, the sky's the limit from there.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, cool. Yeah. What I will part with is just that my take on Halo in general is that I think the idea of fighting to defend humanity, even if you're no longer fully human, is, in my opinion, one of the most important and enduring themes of Halo. And from this first episode, I think the showrunners have at least a baseline understanding of that theme from what I've seen so far. Because John's dreams, his visions from his life before he was a Spartan, from his childhood, and then his decision to defy orders to protect a civilian, that indicates to me that throughout the course of this first season, at least, he'll truly explore his own humanity and what it means to him. And if that turns out to be the case, I'll consider this show a win in general. Not like a perfect, flawless victory, but it'll at least have done its job at the end if that turns out to be the case. And so,
look, if you, anybody listening to this, if you guys have any things you want to add or any kind of discussion you want to have, or, you know, if you have any extra takes, hot takes, we have an email. We have all sorts of stuff. I would love to hear what everybody says. Besides just looking at my Twitter feed, I would love to, like, actually hear what the community genuinely thinks about this.
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
And feel free to reach out to any of us on Twitter, or please reach out to any of the @lore_party. Anywhere there, we will be happy to respond. We might even be able to bring up some comments on a later episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. What did you think of the helmet scene? What did you think of the CG? What did you think of the supporting characters? Tell us everything. You can email us, lorepartypodcast@gmail.com. And yes, we're, you know, the three of us are on Twitter. You can look us up, lore_party on Twitter and Instagram. Don't be strangers. You know, we'd love to hear from you. With that, though, I think that about wraps it up. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please take a second to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us grow the show. You can also rate us on Spotify, so that'd be appreciated as well. And we'll catch you next time for the next episode of the Halo series on Paramount Plus. See you then.